As it is 2:30, I open the ordinary meeting of the Upper Macquarie County Council on Friday, the 24th of June, 2020. And welcome to Oberon Council. So firstly, I'd like to acknowledge country. Council acknowledges the traditional custodians in the land where we work and live. Council celebrates the diversity of agricultural people and their ongoing cultural and connections to the land and water of New South Wales Central Tablelands. Now, I note the recording of the meeting. Members of the public are advised that proceedings of this meeting, other than any confidential matters, will be recorded and made publicly available on the council website, and any persons attending the meeting should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Now, members may also attend with the approval of council by audio-visual link. A request by a member for approval to attend the meeting by audio-visual link must be made in writing to the General Manager prior to the meeting in question, and must provide reasons why the councillor will be prevented from attending the meeting in person. Mr. General Manager, do we have...
Bruce, yes, I'm fully aware of councillor recruitment's request.
So I therefore move a recommendation to allow Member McKibben to participate in today's council meeting via audio-visual line.
I'll second that.
So Member Leslie seconds it. I've moved it. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. So welcome.
I think you should note that I didn't vote.
Thank you, Member McKibben. Just before I move to suspend standing orders, I'd also like to welcome our new General Manager, Tim Johnston, who has taken up the role as a General Manager. So welcome to Upper Macquarie County Council, Tim. And at this point in time, I will move to suspend standing orders because we do have a guest who would like to speak to the County Council, Brett Fitzpatrick. So do I have a seconder that suspend? So Member O'Connor has moved that way. I seconded that. Any all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Aye. Carried. Okay, I'll hand over to Brett for 3 minutes. Brett.
Thank you, Bruce. I'd like to welcome Tim. It's good to see somebody taking the job on. Good on you. Just talking to a few farmers. We're just mainly concerned about Lithgow at the moment with the slashing inside the road instead of spraying with African lovegrass coming in. That's our main concern. That's pretty much it. Andrew, you got a question, do you?
Could you speak up, please?
Oh, sorry. Well, we're just concerned about the African lovegrass coming in to the Oberon Shire from the Lithgow Shire. Mainly due to slashing instead of spraying it. Like Oberon's maintained a pretty good spraying program, doing a 2-metre strip, and Lithgow's not doing that. They're slashing, and I know it's because I do the 2-metre strip, and I can see more lovegrass coming in on the Lithgow Shire than any other shire about. There is a little bit coming in off the Goulburn side as well, but they do a 2-metre strip as well. But there was lovegrass coming in that way, and Oberon hasn't really ever had much lovegrass, and it does start on the side of the road. It's probably the only weed that does start on the side of the road. That's the main concern that I've heard over a few people I've spoken to. And nightshade, it's a bit of a one that everyone has to keep a bit of an eye on as well. And that's about it for me, really.
Are there any questions? So Andrew, Member McKibben, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must asking, do you think an information session in the Oberon and other areas in relation to sticky nightshade would be of benefit, so people actually know exactly what it is, Brett?
Yes, it probably would be actually, yeah. Yeah, New South Wales Farms could probably organise something like that, yes.
Thank you. So, and maybe we look at the New South Wales Farmers branches in the other areas as well. Do you think it's also that the slashing is also spreading things like Chilean needlegrass?
Yes, yeah, you're probably right there actually, yes. Yeah.
From what you've seen with your spraying program?
Bathurst is a shocker for doing that too. Out in front of Scott School, they spread a hell of a lot of it there. Yeah, it's a major issue as well. Yes, I should have brought that up as well.
No.
So,
Thanks.
an upper Macquarie County Council point of view, I assume if you do arrange a meeting that you'll invite, and maybe one or two of the Lithgow councillors, for example, might be interested in coming as well. So we'll notify councillors if there is going to be an event, and we'll see if we can get the general manager, chief biosecurity officer along to the event to sort of
Yeah.
hear about it and talk about it. Any other questions from the floor? If not, thank you, Brett, for talking to
Good.
County Council. We'll move back into standing order. So do I have a mover? We move back in. So member O'Connor and member Smith. Seconded it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, so apologies, Mr. General Manager.
There are 3 apologies. And names, please.
Member Watt,
Mr. Bruce Watt,
member Ben Fry,
Ben Fry,
and member Alan Ewan.
Alan Ewan.
I've got an apology to Hugh Webb. Made an apology.
So do I have a mover to accept the apologies? Member O'Connor and member Smith. All in favour? Against? Carried. Confirmation of the minutes being distributed on Tuesday evening. Do I have a mover to an accurate record? So member Smith and member O'Connor. Oh no, I'll give it member McKibben. Lifted his hand on the screen. So moved member Smith and seconded member McKibben. All in favour?
Aye. Aye.
Against? Carried. Matters arising from the minutes. Does anyone have any matters? Member McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. I was just referring to the report that's meant to go to each of the constituent councils re the roadside spraying. I thought we would have had that by now. I was wondering where it is at. I note the other issue about the WAP funding has been deferred by a subsequent notice of motion, so I'm happy with that, but I'm just wondering where we are with these roadside spraying reports that each of the constituent councils would receive.
General Manager.
Andrew, the report hasn't been finalised yet for the constituent councils. We will ensure that that report is produced before the next meeting.
So can we advise our constituent councils they'll receive it? When's the next meeting? August, isn't it?
Correct.
Yes, we will.
I mean, it'd be good if we could advise them that they could receive it. I know the general manager of Oberon was expecting it and asked me the other day, and I sort of said, oh, mid to late July, I think, as a just to, you know, give him some indication. That'd be good if we could get it done by July.
Good. Will do.
I think most of the information's there. It just has to be put into a format.
Yes.
So any other questions on the minutes? Observations? If not,
Yes,
oh, yes.
just obviously a formal congratulations, welcome aboard, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Smith. With no further matters arising, just go down to today's business. Oh, and disclosure. Disclosure of any interests, as in with the business paper today. Does anyone have any disclosure matters?
No.
Okay, if there are none, then I don't think we need to move or second.
Yep.
We do.
Just
There is a
let it be noted.
recommendation. So moved member Leslie, seconded
Second.
member O'Connor. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, the next matter is the county council meeting schedule for 2022. Do I have a mover that we adopt the proposed meeting schedule? Member O'Connor, member Smith. Favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Well, I was going to,
Sorry, I'll defer the vote. Sorry, member McKibben, I didn't see you waving.
look, I have no problem with the meeting schedule other than to advise that for the workshop on the 16th of September, I'll be flying to New Zealand. So it's unlikely I will be able to attend that, that workshop. That was the only day we could get actually flights.
Is there another day that would suit our chairman?
It's frozen.
It's up to members' view. I don't have to be there, obviously.
No, you don't have to be there, but you are the chairman and your presence is always a valuable contribution to our council. Is there, I love hearing you, so it's not an issue, but is there another date that would suit you that may be suitable to the rest of the council?
Well, I think probably the Friday before. Just let me have a look at my diary. And I was foreshadowing it because it's quite a time out. I mean,
They're talking about Friday, the 9th of September.
yes, that seems free to me at the moment.
Okay, so we'll amend the proposed workshop date to Friday, the 9th of September, still at 12 noon. Before if you finish, member McKibben?
I have. I appreciate the indulgence of members present. We are attending a wedding in New Zealand, so I can't really change the date terribly for that.
The other matter, just before we do go to a vote, so I was very hasty, was we were potentially discussing changing the day and or the time of the meetings. Personally, I did suggest, I think Lisa received some feedback, but do we want to wait for another meeting to the next meeting and maybe have a come back? Okay, we'll come back at the next meeting with the potential to look at different days or at least a different time on this day. So we won't mention that in the minutes. We'll look at that for the August meeting. So now we've had a mover, we've had a seconder, we've had a debate. So all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Number 2 is in statement of investments as at the 31st of May 2022. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Member O'Connor. Seconder, member Smith. So any discussion on the investment position, which looks quite sound at the end of May at $1.485 million. Possibly a question myself through to the GM. Does this take into account the aerial program, or has income and expenditure been taken into account with the aerial program, or is there more income to come in or more expenditure to go out?
I'd have to take the question on notice. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I will, and I'll come back to you all next Tuesday with an answer.
Thank you. Any other questions on the investments? If not, put it, the recommendation be accepted. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item number 3, business activity strategic plan for 2022-23 to 2032-33, delivery program 2022-23 to 2026-2027, and operational plan for 2022-2023. Do I have a mover for the two recommendations? Member Smith and Member O'Connor. Okay, discussion. Firstly, a question to the General Manager. Did we receive any feedback at all?
My understanding is there's been no submissions to the publication of these strategies, the delivery program or the operation plan.
Now, I also understand that and I'm happy to move an amendment to the two recommendations, that we have a third recommendation with regard to remuneration for councillors, and that remuneration increased by 2% on the last financial year. Do I have a seconder for the Member O'Connor? I seconded that change. Any debate on 1, 2, or the third amendment to the remuneration?
Oh, this is just a standard increase that's now well under inflation. I think it's just perfectly reasonable, and I'll vote in favour of it.
Member McKibben also wants to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. I can't recall what percentage increase we used in our assumptions in the for both of those. Was it 2.5%?
If you're asking about the budget, so the operational plan.
Yes,
there is actually
in the business activity strategic plan and delivery plan, we must have used assumptions.
So in the operational
plan,
there is no change. So this in general wages, however, there is a 10.5% allocation to each member plus the chair of superannuation.
Absolutely.
So some members may or may not take that up, and that's up to each individual member. But there is enough leeway for a small 2% increase not to have a substantial impact. And I would suggest at the next QBRS that adjustment be made to the.
Okay, so in our operational plan for next year, we assume no increase in salaries.
No increase in wages for or in subscriber members' fees. For wages, there is an increase for all staff, but not for members.
Okay. So on the basis of a 2% increase, noting that there was a reasonable increase last year and that we haven't allowed for it in our operational plan, is it conceivable that we should not take the 2% increase, which we have the liberty to do?
So just in a quick calculation to answer the approximate cost.
Yes.
In the back of my head, it would be under $1,000 increase in the cost of the county council. So each member receives approximately $4,000, and you as the chair receive, I think it is $7,500, but I stand to be corrected. Member McKibben, as chair on top of your $4,000. So 2% would be $80 per member. So 8 members at 80 is $640.
It's less than 1,000.
So yes, it's less than $1,000 is what the general manager informs. So insignificant impact, and so we wouldn't have to re-advertise it on the budget to make that amendment. But are you you could vote against this recommendation? It'd probably be, given that it is out for debate at the moment. So is there anyone else in favour or against the recommendation before we go to a vote? If there's no one else, no further debate or discussion, unless the general manager has anything else to add. I'll put it those in favour of recommendations 1, 2, and the amended number 3. Please raise your hand. Against? So it's unanimous. We'll move on to the strategic operational plan for meeting WAP targets, item number 4. And there's a response from the general manager. So this is just to be noted. Council affords the new incumbent general manager, Timothy Johnston, more time to address this notice of motion and bring a report back to council in August, the August 2022 meeting. So do I have a mover? So Councillor O'Connor, Member Smith, Member O'Connor and Member Smith. Any discussion on the deferment till the August meeting? If not, Member Given, yes.
When do we have to actually submit our weed action program targets to DPI and LLS for 2022-23?
I'll ask the
Is it
general
December?
manager.
Those discussions have already commenced with the department, is my understanding. And they are set over the 5-year period in the full program of WAP. They're already indicated. And what we do is negotiate through local land services on any adjustments that we choose to make between programs. And that discussion has now just commenced.
Okay, well, I think there'll obviously be some more discussion in confidential because there's some issues I can't raise here.
Thank you, Member McKibben. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favour of the deferral? Against? Carried. Item number 5, the biosecurity risk register. Do I have a mover? Member McKibben and Member Smith. So discussion. Member McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. I note that we did 285 inspections, 155 of the were first inspections, but only 23 of that 155 were on inspection high risk, and 132 were low risk. Now, I know that we have to get our inspection rates up, but that is a very low percentage of high risk on first inspection. So although it may be increasing our volume of inspections, it's maybe not increasing our volume of effectiveness.
I'll ask the general manager, who might refer to the chief biosecurity officer.
Chris, would you like to comment, please?
Yes, sir.
Part of that, here's okay. Part of that is to do with the re-inspections of properties that are high risk, and then looking at the property next door to that high risk property, which is then just helping justify and recording a record of why that other property is high risk and the effect that it's having on the neighbour that's clean next door.
So what percentage of the 132 would that apply to?
I can't answer that.
We'll come back with a number for you there by next Tuesday on more detail around those 132 low risk properties.
Because we were obviously trying to get that the percentage of first inspections a lot higher, so that we were targeting bad properties. Now, I know that that conflicts with a couple of other things, including our WAP funding, but to be seen and to be seen to be targeting high risk properties that are the ones being raised by let's say landholders who look after their biodiversity risk. It was believed we needed to do that to see that we're actually achieving what we're aiming to achieve. I realise that's contrary to some others, but I just think when we look at 132 of 155, which ends up being 85% are low risk of the total we did on first inspection. That does seem completely contrary to what our initial aims were when this was discussed, say, a year and a half ago. And as I know that it's just an about turn in some ways. 85% is a very high percentage. It's virtually suggesting, apart from providing the evidence, as the Chief Biodiversity Officer has said, to justify a higher risk properties next door, which I can understand the argument for that. It's still a very, if our landholders are reading, which they do, are reading our reports online and they see this, well, they're saying, can't you better target properties with a higher risk? Which is probably, we have to then combat that complaint.
So the General Manager and Chief Biosecurity Officer will bring back a report, though, Member McKibben, on why, as in the level and why we've targeted a large number in the May period. Do you have any other questions on where Member Smith has a question?
Oh, no, he's catching it.
Okay. Do you have any others, Member McKibben?
No, but I am pleased to see that the 90 days and over has reduced to 8 properties, and I think that's commendable because it was a lot higher in May.
And that possibly leads to another question to the Chief Biosecurity Officer. Is it still at 8?
No, it's been reduced from 8. They've all been attended to since the report was run.
All right.
So that indicates there's now 0. Any other questions from the floor?
Well, just a comment. There's 132 inspections at a low risk. That seems to me good news. It also seems to me that there's 132 properties that you don't need to check, next week, next month. And so if you can do that, you can keep, and therefore you're keeping moving. Now, of that 132, a substantial number, I can't guess what, but a substantial number have to be properties that are next door to high risk properties. Now, so you're able to put them in the good category, and you're able to use that same 130, well, that same percentage of that 132 as part of the process in working with the troublemakers, the difficult people, the ones who aren't prepared to help. So it's hard for me to guess, but just looking at these figures, it seems like the mix is right, between those that you have to keep coming back and working on, plus others that you are able to demonstrate to other groups that we're looking at our core people, plus making sure that there's no one it's just sort of being left out permanently. So as you do keep moving through the area. Now I know there's a lot of properties, but you've got to start somewhere, and if there's 132 that are now able to be left off of any deliberate inspection, well, that's terrific.
I think the same. What you said is sensible.
Thank you, Member O'Connor. Member McKibben has another question.
Sorry, is it me or Member O'Connor?
Sorry, you Member McKibben.
No, I do appreciate Member Leslie's comments, but some years ago, you recall, we were trying to increase our target to be able to target higher risk so that we weren't doing unitary inspections. I said, I think that probably conflicts with some of our funding ideas and the concept of inspecting ones around the high risk. I just think it'd be good to get a breakdown of that. The other thing I thought is that normally with this report, we got a report on penalty infringement notices. Those that have been issued, those that have been rejected, those that have are still in extant, and those that are paid. Am I incorrect?
General Manager, are you happy to provide a report back?
I'm happy to do that if you wish to.
Well-
In the August
Well,
meeting.
correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that was usually part of this report from previous meetings.
It is an oversight. I've just been told that it is normally a part of this report, but it was not included in this particular report.
Could I ask, and I can't recall what the last, was it 50 or 60? Has the number of pins issued gone up substantially? The chief through you, acting chairman, through to the general manager, through to the chief biosecurity officer, that should be known.
So I've been informed by the General Manager that 78, since we started issuing pins, is the number of pins that have been issued, but does the chief biosecurity officer wish to add anything?
I would say that number's pretty close. We don't know exactly.
But what I will ask of the General Manager is
I'll
on
put it in
Tuesday,
Tuesday,
yes,
yep.
if he could write a written report back on how many pins, and particularly in the last 12 months.
So the draft number I put in that letter to the minister of 80 wasn't too far off.
Correct.
All right, thank you. But yes, if we could have that report at the next meeting, or even if it might be interesting if circulating something else to members as an interim report, it was included just as a matter of interest. But don't do something separately, just if you're sending something else. Yeah.
The General Manager said he will include it in the report next week. Any other questions from the floor? I have one from the chair to potentially the chief biosecurity officer through the General Manager. How are we going with the number of inspections up until end of May or this point in time for the year?
We're obviously we've only got this 1 month that we're currently almost through. But looking at the rate, we're hoping we'll be able to come close to our targets, if not surpass the targets.
Excellent.
Sorry, I couldn't hear any of that.
Oh, sorry. As you know, obviously, we're coming to the end. We're partway through this month now, but looking at the rates of inspections, we're hoping to come close to meeting all of those targets.
Right. Thank you.
Heard that, Member McKinnon?
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other matters from this report, I shall put it. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now, confidential matters. I'll note that in accordance with section 9 brackets 2A of the Local Government Act 1993, the General Manager is of the opinion that business on the agenda designated confidential and listed in the following table 1 is of kind referred to in section 10A brackets 2 of the Act and should be dealt with in part of the meeting closed to the media and public. And further, in accordance with section 10B brackets 1 of the Act, it is considered that discussion of the business in open meeting would on balance be contrary to public interest. And therefore council resolve to close confidential committee of the whole to consider business identified as confidential together with any confidential late reports tabled at the meeting. Do I have a mover? Member Smith, Member Leslie. All in favour?
Aye.
The
Against?
recordings in.
Okay, we've come out of closed council. I'm not quite sure. Do we need to move it again? Does it come out? Or-
No, no, no.
It's already come out. So,
Being recorded.
we have three recommendations that have come out. Firstly, with regard to the general manager's performance agreement, council note the report. Second, with regard to a prosecution update, council note the report. And thirdly, with regard to biosecurity register report, and again, council notes the report. I therefore declare, unless there's any other urgent business, the general manager wants to ask something, which is, do you want to restate it or do you want someone to do it? Okay. So, you want me to, or?
No, no, go.
Okay, so before I close, I would like to move that we recognise the performance and the workload and the outcomes from the acting general manager who took on the role for a couple of months and it ended up, I think, about 6 months. So I'd like to move that we recognise Lisa for the work that she has done over this 6-month period. It's been a fantastic working experience to work with Lisa, as in over that time. As a council,
Yeah.
we've achieved a huge amount and moving forward, and that has seen with a number of actions that are currently taking place. With that, yeah, I'd like to congratulate Lisa. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
So unanimous, or everyone seconding it? So a vote of thanks. Well,
Thank you very much.
Carried by acclamation.
It's been a pleasure.
okay, does anyone else want to say anything before I close? If not, we close at 3:49 PM. Thank you.
Thank you.